Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rosefellow Podcast. Along with me today, my partner and co-founder, Sam Tsoumas. Sam, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Before introducing our special guest, I got to say, Sam, thanks for being here. I mean, you went through a lot in the last couple of days. Back surgery on Saturday. Emergency back surgery on Saturday in the States. Couldn't even make it back to do it here. So, and then on a plane on Wednesday to get here for this podcast on Thursday.
It's been quite tough. So if I look a little stiff, there's a reason for that. But the saying is lift with your legs, not your back. It's completely true.
Thanks for making the effort. Happy to have you. And with us today, a powerhouse in the Montreal real estate community, market, and across Canada. Barry Kazandjian, partner, Remax 3000, and just, I mean, an incredible journey to get to where you are. Thanks for being with us, Barry.
Thanks, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. Thanks, Sam, for coming here. Even though you're injured and you're recuperating, it's a real pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about the journey, because it wasn't always real estate. I mean, we know each other for a long time, and it goes back to a time where we were both in the bag industry, in the textile industry. Tell us how you went from, where you started and how you end up to where you are today.
I grew up kind of like in the retail business. My parents were in the business when I was young with my siblings. We grew up watching, mainly my mom, who was like no experience in retail or any work industry. She had to come here before my dad came because she had to stay back 3-4 years before he would come. So you have a lady who has never worked in her life before, doesn't speak French, doesn't speak English, but had to feed the family. And my uncles were here a couple of years before her, and they told her to come work in the store. And so all she learned was a couple of words in French, like "Bonjour, je peux vous aider." Then they got like color schemes in front of her and said, "This is purses and this." So she kind of, we kind of, as siblings, my brother and my sister, growing up, watching her sell, we noticed a few tendencies she had. And despite the fact that she didn't speak very well English or French, she was able to get a message across to a buyer. And some of the salesmanship skills that we saw in her was that no was not really an answer.
I love that.
So customer would come in with with a shoe. I would say, like, let's say it's a red shoe, and we don't have red purses in the store. Well, she would show us a purse, and the customer say, "No, it's not for me. Thank you very much. Bye-bye." There was no bye-bye for her. And we're cringing as kids watching her, like, let her go. For God's sakes, let her go. And after maybe 20 minutes, sure enough, that customer would walk out with a different color purse, but feeling great about it.
Huh.
And the lesson we learned from that is that 3 weeks later, the same customer comes in with a different shoe and says, "Everybody loved my purse that you gave me. Can you find me another one for this shoe?"
Wow.
And so we kind of realized that in sales, it's not so much what you say, it's how you make the customer feel. Because she made them feel great leaving.
It's that experience.
Yeah, and so
sometimes the customers don't even know what they really want.
Exactly. So your job is to kind of like try to see what they want, but at the same time, maybe convince them that something else is great for them. It translates well in real estate, and today, like, my brother and my sister are both also in real estate. And I think we all bring a good sense of salesmanship to this industry, which we picked up from the retail industry.
How did you make that switch from selling bags to getting into real estate?
Well, my sister started in real estate even before I did. I started 20 years ago. She may have started 35.
Oh, wow. Okay.
35 years ago, when, instead of having the MLS, she had the big book. She would walk around with a big book, young girl, 20 years old, walking around with a big book, trying to sell homes, finding homes. But when we looked at her, we said, well, what a tough industry. I mean, that's horrible. I mean, prices were low. Interest rates fluctuated, and so sales were very difficult back then. And you could see her carrying around and hustling, and to try to get one sale, which commissions on 100,000, the average price, let's say, was significantly lower.
Commissions were higher, though.
Commissions were higher. They were at 7%, 8%.
They
but the values of the homes are much lower.
And also volume was not the same because it was harder to sell. And in the meantime, because we grew up in the retail business, my brother and I said, you know what, let's just get some stores, relax, party at night, and in the daytime we'll just do the stores. And retail was great back then. Everything would sell. It's like so when we transitioned was when we saw that big box stores starting opening up everywhere, and big box stores started selling everything. The Costco's and everything. So we used to sell luggages and leather goods and handbags, and all of a sudden you're seeing that big box stores sell the same thing for cheaper. So we saw the trend in retail slowly getting worse and worse, while real estate prices were going higher and higher, and the market was getting more sophisticated in real estate with the MLS system, and so when there came a point where we felt real estate seemed to be an easier living than retail was. And we transitioned, keeping the stores and getting our foot in the door at real estate to see how we like it. And
so that was your light bulb moment.
The light bulb moment was, the first commission check that comes in. You got to sell a lot of luggages to match that commission check.
Absolutely.
And so that's when that's the light bulb moment, that first commission check. When we started realizing that it was a better venue for earning a living, we switched it up, and eventually we sold the stores and got into real estate full time.
I recently looked at your bio, and I couldn't believe the recent designations or the achievements you've made, not only in Quebec but across Canada. Tell us a little bit about that before we get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the recognition is great. You're getting these awards now, and after 20 years, it's nice to be recognized.
But it's not just any type of award. I mean, you're not. I mean, it's what were you, top 100 in Canada?
Top 100 was in the world.
In the world,
which
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. In Canada, I think it's like top 25, and in Quebec is like top 5.
That's
something
incredible.
Like that, which is it's rewarding. At the same time, I almost want to ignore it, because I feel that if I put too much emphasis in that, inadvertently it gets to your head sometimes, and you think that you can do things differently. But the truth is, it's not what got you there, right? So it's the little things you do that makes a difference.
You often credit your success to maintaining a strong reputation. I guess that's what you mean. Staying humble, staying grounded, and keeping your promise.
Yes, I mean, reputation doesn't come overnight, right? But how you work, you can have that instilled in you right from the start. So I think it's the little things you do that over time leads to a good reputation, which ends up helping you in this career or any career, right? It's the little things that you do.
Has it been harder to keep that reputation good through the years, and how transactions have become more difficult?
Well, listen, yes. I mean, transactions are sometimes very difficult. It's complex. You're dealing in an industry that's very competitive. And your reputation should be almost spotless, because, you can never be spotless, because no matter what you do right, some people will say something that's contrary to what you did or whatever. But if you're doing the right things, and if you're dealing with people the right way, whether it's buyers, sellers, or colleagues, whether it's people who are, collaborating with you or competing with you, how you treat them eventually makes your reputation.
So in this transition now from where you were, tell us a couple of files that you found have interested you, different transactions, whether it be buildings, houses, things that have changed in the industry that you're seeing that you really enjoy doing.
Well, when I started, I thought, coming with a economics background in university, I thought, what I'm going to aim for is more the revenue properties and the commercial stuff, because that's going to be my niche, and it's big numbers. But I kind of fell in love with the real estate on the residential side. And although I do all of it, but I would say my bulk now has become residential. And I know that you were talking to me earlier, and you got the opposite
Yes.
thing, because it's different for everybody, right? Although you got really quick success in residential right away, you didn't like it, and you knew that wasn't for you. In my case, it was different. I got success in commercial and multi-res, but I wasn't feeling the connection with the clients, whereas I love that connection with the clients. And in a way, when emotions are high in residential, much more than in commercial, because commercial, it's numbers, right? Makes sense, doesn't make sense. Residential, it's how you feel. It's
color of a wall.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Color of a wall could change your attitude, and sometimes you're kind of surprised, but that's where the challenge comes in, is to make them understand that it's beyond that, and you can see beyond certain things. And so I kind of fell in love with that aspect of residential real estate.
The one thing that I've always admired, I mean, I've known you for a long time, to the extent that that many of the homes I've purchased over my life been through you, that I referred you to my parents, I referred you to my sister, to friends. The same message keeps coming back to me every time I refer you, is that how, you're the patience you have. My mom could be a very special lady.
But she is a special lady. I love her.
Well, you're special in different types of settings. But the patience you have, to the extent that I remember at one point when they were looking to buy a duplex or a triplex, I think you probably showed them 10, 15, 20. And you never seemed fed up. You never seemed tired of it. It was like, this is not the right fit. And I remember a couple of times they were like, oh, we like this one. No, it's not going to be good for you. And it was more about the honesty and not about making the commission. That's something that resonates well, and it resonated with many people that I've referred you to. It's like, oh, he's great, he's amazing, to the extent where now it's, okay, I got to sell a home, I'm calling Barry. It's not about who's out there, it's you're the go-to guy. So that goes back to the reputation.
It's really nice to hear. And the truth is, I genuinely like people. People like your mom that you might, she might be special, but everybody,
I hope she's not listening to this podcast.
And no, and it's special, I find, in a good way, because everybody's special. Everybody's different in my eyes, but you gotta like what you do.
Absolutely.
You gotta, I think that one of the common denominators for success in what you guys do and how you live is that you love what you do. Right? So if you don't love what you do, of course you're going to run out of patience. Of course you're going to start triggering wrong messages to people. But if you really enjoy what you do and you love dealing with people, you embrace their differences. It's nice to hear that people appreciate that and it resonates with them.
So how about we transition a little bit? Talk to us a little bit about the market. Tell us what you see. Are times getting better? Are they getting worse? Differences, you see trends that maybe future investors or buyers in residential should be looking forward. Tell us what Barry sees happening in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, listen, I've seen a trend that's been, if you look back in residential real estate especially, the trend has been that every 10 years values double. So you see a lot of people get affected by, the tariff talk or high interest rates or, a lot of, uncertainties, economic, gloom and doom scenarios. But if you, and part of what a good realtor is supposed to do is to kind of realize that, acknowledge it, but at the same time reassure the buyers that in the long run, you're parking your money in the right spot. And in the long run, you can't go wrong with residential or, even at a certain degree, multi-residentials. People need to shelter, right? People need to live somewhere. So, and it's a brick and mortar. It's not exactly, it's not stock markets. It's not speculative as much. So your job is kind of to reassure them. And it's going better and better as far as residential values go. There's a lot of stuff that triggered in certain areas, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, the condo market suffering a bit downtown, right? So yes, it's suffering, but they put in some rules that ban foreigners from buying if you don't live here.
What was your opinion on those rules?
Listen, I understood the logic behind it, but on the other sense, I also understand that it hurt the economy because the foreign investment at one point or another was fueling construction demand. And when you're combining that at the same time where interest rates are rising and also people vacated downtown core because they're working from home, your timing is not great. So maybe people running the show have to be a bit more hands-on as to when we're doing something and when to back off, be more flexible. Instead, they prolonged it another 2 years, so now you got 4 years. But I could see firsthand how much it significantly dropped sales, especially in the downtown condo market. And people are suffering, not just the developers, but people who work in that industry, people who are buying, selling. And so
Renters.
So you're worried about lack of supply, but at the same time, if builders are not building, you're not necessarily helping that problem. So you have to be a bit more dynamic, I find. And in some cases, I don't see that response time being adjusted according to the market.
Another facet of real estate that I'm intrigued to hear your answer about or comment about is we've seen it on TV shows over the last 5 to 7 years, how people were buying homes to renovate them, to flip them really quick. We don't hear as much about it. Is it still as active as it was, or do you see less of that?
You're seeing a resurgence of it. We were, when I was doing that with clients maybe 15 years ago, it was a big challenge for me to convince a buyer to buy a flip, because they would see it as someone profiting off their back. And the perception changed a lot over the past 5 years, because going through renovations, people know that it's so difficult right now and timely, and cost goes up through the roof. They don't know the cost uncertainty behind it. And so now when you tell them that we have a turnkey home for you, that it costs you X dollars and you can move in tomorrow, they see it as an added value. They don't want to go through the trouble. So, I have a waiting list now of people who are telling me, do you have any other opportunities of turnkeys coming up in this area or that area, which is crazy, unheard of. 15 years ago, when I would have to kind of camouflage the flip aspect of it.
So are you seeing actually more demand for turnkey properties as opposed to...
100%.
Really? Oh,
and even that leads into the luxury market right now. If you offer something turnkey, people are, especially professionals, both working, they don't have time for renos. They'll pay a premium knowing, even let's say they know that you bought it at half the price a year ago and you didn't spend twice as much to renovate, but you did it to their taste. If it's done well, they'll pay you the premium you want with pleasure, because they know they've saved time and it's to their taste. They're going to move into more.
And I can live with an actual example that we had together.
Yeah.
I always wanted to buy a piece of land on a specific street, facing the river, and it was not available. Somehow, you found that piece of land. We put under contract. We bought the land. And I went through the process with the architects, with the contractors, and we're in the field.
We're in the field.
So we know where budgets are, and it was so draining.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially with the hours we put into Rosefellow, it was so draining, that aspect of looking over my personal home on top of running a business, that I remember calling you and I said, Barry, I'm just tired. I'm tired.
I remember.
Is there any homes available? And your first comment was, well, we just bought land. I said, I'm sure we can find the buyer for the land. Is there anything available? And I remember what you did, and this is what I admire about you, is what my passions are.
Yeah.
You didn't send me a picture of the house. You sent me the picture of the interior garage. And you said, you see how many cars you can park there? And I said, well, what about the house? Don't worry. You're going to love it.
Now we need the cars to park down there.
Now we need the cars to park there. But what was incredible is what you did is you sold the land quickly after we put it on the market. I bought the home, I was under contract with the home that you brought me to, the one home you brought me to, and I did fall in love with it like you expected. And the buyer, the vendor of that home ended up buying
your
my land. Yeah. It was incredible. And he wasn't even looking for land.
No.
I don't think that's how normally things happen, but I mean,
no,
amazing.
But again, it's about the...
yes, exactly. And the truth is exactly what you said. A lot of people go into it sometimes thinking it's going to be an easy process. Even though you're in the business, it wasn't an easy process. And that's what people value now, the turnkey. As a good realtor, you have to know what your clients really like, and I knew that you loved cars.
Yeah.
So it's funny, but when I mentioned to you, there's a house here, there's a house there, nothing triggered you. But when I sent you a picture of the nice garage, you said, you got my attention now. Let's go see. So it was nice. So this is part of the process of real estate that I love, is that it's so dynamic in the sense that you might change your mind. That there's a lot of emotions involved also,
Absolutely.
right? So you get fed up, you're frustrated. You have a family, your kids don't want to. You're thinking about a lot of things. So as a realtor, you have to understand what's going on, and so if you understand, you kind of try to help them accordingly, right?
And I think in residential too, you have to be, you have to play the person you're speaking to. And what I mean by that is you're going to be dealing with a couple. You're going to be dealing with a husband and wife. And I could just imagine it where the husband walks in, he looks at you, says, I like it, convince her, or vice versa. I'm sure you get that all the time.
A lot of that. And the tricky part is to not make one or the other feel like you're ignoring their needs for the other. You're not high-fiving the guy and saying, this is it. While the woman is saying, I can't believe he likes this.
It's a very emotional,
so
it's a very emotional
a
game.
Tricky balance.
You mentioned something before about your mom, how you started in the industry, seeing her sell, how she never took no for an answer. And I actually correlate that to almost everything we all do, whether it's selling, garments or real estate or development. And I think of my own first actual purchase in real estate. I was 24 years old. I didn't have much money, and I wanted to buy a condo to rent it. And I remember I was working in the restaurant industry, and I was working as a busboy or as a waiter, and evidently not declaring the full capabilities of the revenues. And I remember finding a place, and it wasn't much. It was a little over $100,000. And everybody was telling me no, every bank. And I got so fed up. And I remember going to the bank manager directly, walking in, TD, and saying, just tell me what it would take for it to be a yes. Anything crazy. And then let me see if I could do it. And the moment I said that, the bank manager switched and said, well, if you do this, you got it. And it was something that was so easy. And that never take no
that's
for
it. I think that's the key. Listen, that's the attitude you need to succeed. Obviously, you guys have gotten somewhere incredibly far, we wanted to know what advice I would give to new brokers and stuff, right? But look at your look at your example. And I heard an analogy once which resonated with me. It was an analogy of a tree, right? A beautiful big tree. You're looking at it, you're admiring, it's beautiful, right? But you don't realize, but underneath that tree is just as big but ugly roots underground that nobody sees, okay? Now, people look at your success and they say, within 5 years, they're so lucky and they made it in 5 years. And knowing you and knowing your story of Sam's story, but knowing you well, behind the success came many years of grinding that nobody saw. You weren't people weren't noticing, but you were grinding, learning your craft. So by the time you got to where you got, people just see the 5 years, but they don't see the 10 years before or 20 years before you grinded to get to where you are.
We always said we were the oldest new developers on the block.
Exactly.
And you know what, Barry, it's one thing that I find fascinating, I admire about the residential side of the business, especially what you do, where it's not the multi-res, the big projects, the homes where you spend your whole week preparing, cold calling, and you're every weekend touring, because most people who want to buy a home, who want to buy a condo, don't have time during the week. Yeah. They only have time on the weekend. Your schedule never ends. Yeah. How do you? I mean,
how do you balance it?
How do you? Is there a balance? I've heard that many times. Oh, it's important in life. You got to work towards having a simple balance between family, work. For myself, it doesn't work. Emotionally, it doesn't work. If I would have a 50-50 split between family and work, I would not be emotionally sound. I love what I do. I can't leave out of town more than 5 days. My family knows that. If we have family trips, they will book 3 weeks, and they know they're booking me for 7 days. Yeah. Because they know I get extremely edgy and I need to be back in the office. But that's, for me, my balance. And my family is okay with that because we've all come to terms with that. But how do you, considering that, and again, we're in industrial. We work Monday to Friday. We work at Rosefellow on weekends, but that's just because we choose to. Most people don't. But in residential, you don't have a choice. There's no off switch. You're here.
Correct.
You're doing it 7 days a week. How do you manage that?
7 days. It's morning, nights, weekends. It's all there. I mean, I'm similar to you in the sense that I have a huge workload and I love it, so I do it. But at the same time, I think balance is very important. And I do balance family life, friend life, sport life, in a way that you make it work as far as your time goes. But also, it doesn't have to be, I remember my dad used to be a workhorse as well. He used to put in 18 hours. We didn't see him often, but when we did see him, I remember those times that we were together, it was intense and it was fun, and you kept those core memories. So today, if I'm doing stuff with the kids, it might not be for hours, but even if it's 15, like I'll be late for an appointment. I'm putting on my suit, I'm getting in, I put my coat on, I've grabbed my coffee to go, and my son will turn around to me and say, "Dad, where are you going?" "I'm late for work." 10 minutes of floor hockey downstairs. I'll drop everything.
Yeah.
I'll go down. That 10 minutes of floor hockey is going to be happening. A street fight right after. All right, we'll have a street fight, a hockey fight right after on the ground. He's 13. So I started late, so I'm doing these stupidities, but my shirt's wrinkled, my suit's all undone. I don't care. I'm getting in the car, but I tell you that extra 10, 15 minutes makes him feel great, makes me feel amazing, better than closing a $5 million deal. But how does that help me? Well, when I get to my appointment, I might be 10 minutes late, right? But when I'm there fully happy, excited, a spring in my step. If I were to get there on time, but on my way regretting that I let my boy down, I'm there half-heartedly, not paying attention, not enjoying what I do because I'm frustrated.
Absolutely.
So it's not how much time you spend; it's how you spend that time and how much passion you put into it.
I like that. That was a great saying there.
Yeah, that's what makes the difference.
Quality, not quantity.
But it's true because so many people will have that simple balance, but yet when they're with their kids, they're on their phones looking at Instagram, looking at Facebook, disconnected completely, giving an iPad to their kids, saying, "Here you go."
Yeah, so I'll have that short time, but they'll know, the kids will know that I'm with them, doing whatever they want me to, but I'm 100% with them.
Absolutely.
But you see, that is a form of balance.
Yes.
And it's just not a 50-50 balance.
Correct.
And it doesn't need to be.
You can ask my kids now, do they view themselves as secondary or priority? My kids don't care. You're number 1 in Montreal, you're number 10. And
your dad.
Dad, are you there for me? Yes. But if you ask them, they don't feel that I've neglected them because they know that I can be there for them when they need me. Same thing goes for sports. When I'm playing sport, I'll play the stupidest sport is pickleball, let's say. It's more casual. All right, I love it. But when I'm playing pickleball, you'll think that I'm playing for the Olympics. Everybody's out there high-fiving each other and casually walking around, but I'm in there tense, passion, whoa, screaming. People are looking at me and saying, "What's this guy?" But that's how I don't do half-hearted. You got to do full or don't do it at all.
Love that.
Agreed.
So whatever you do, you're working, you do it with passion. In our line of work, unfortunately, it's a 7-day job. People want to see you home. You can't say, "Today I'm off." But you do it with joy, but balance that with a quality of life that,
If we were to flip it a bit, you're seeing young professionals who come into the workforce, what would you suggest to them today? Would you suggest buy a condo, buy a home, or would you suggest to rent? Where would your suggestions be? And obviously, you're hoping that they want to sell because that's where you make your money. But as a dad, what would you recommend to your kid who's 18 years old, 21, coming out of university? He's an accountant, he's a lawyer. What do you recommend to do?
I definitely recommend to buy as soon as you're able to buy.
Okay.
If you've scraped some money together, you can buy. If you can get, like Sam did, he just told you, like he wasn't getting accepted, but he found a way to get it done. And it's a building block. And it doesn't matter really sometimes what your first purchase is, as long as you do it, because you build from that and you get something else. Eventually you build more. And so you got to trust a little bit that the long-term investment in real estate is good, which it is. And also, first-time buyers, some of the stuff that, they worry about is, location, is I want the perfect spot and I want the perfect property. You can't look at everything to be perfect when you're buying your first property. You're at $10 million, $20 million, and you still don't have perfection today. So
there's always a market for inexpensive real estate, and there's always a buyer for it.
100%.
Same with upscale. There's always a buyer for it. So if you buy something in the right price range, there's always going to be a buyer for it. For me, the key actually was confidence. It allowed me to have belief in myself that I can do it. And it was simply a building block, like you mentioned.
Yes.
It was buy one and sell it a year later, make a little bit of a deposit to buy something a little bit bigger. And I actually see that direct correlation from that first purchase to my first home.
Which is
it played a role in the deposit of my first home. So
I think it's very important to start somewhere and to not hesitate. And which leads to eventually, the bigger and better properties, and so that's my recommendation.
Do you see a difference in the way that parents help out their kids today than they did 25 years ago? I know Sam is in pretty much the same situation as I did. You had to scrape every last dollar together to get your first home. When I moved out of my parents' home to get a condo, I only had $15,000. I put 10 as a deposit, and the rest, whatever I had to pay was from a credit line. So I didn't do probably the most logical purchase, but I was able to get my first condo. But a lot of our friends at the time had parents who'd said, "Here's 10 grand, here's $20,000. Let me help you with your first home." Where is that today? Do you see these young people are getting financially supported by family?
More than before.
Okay.
I definitely feel that you're seeing a lot more help from parents today than you would see 20 years ago. You see a lot of people that are independent also, obviously, but you're seeing that because of high prices, even if you go to the suburbs now, if you go to the North Shore, you go to Laval, the average home is $700,000. And you're not getting much for $700,000, So,
but even a condo, I was mentioning, my first one was a little over 100.
Yes.
Today you might need 250 to 300.
Even more.
Put 10% down. 5% down.
It's not easy to cut.
It's an enormous amount.
So in a way, you need help, which is good. You take it and you help.
So you mentioned, if we talk about certain markets, if you mentioned Saint Laurent, if you were to mention it's considered a hot spot.
Yeah.
That's where I live. I love it because I consider it center ice, 10 minutes from everywhere.
Yeah.
What factors make an area a great area, a promising area?
Well, in Saint Laurent's case, it's a pretty recent area, recently developed, in the sense that maybe 30 years ago, that part of Saint Laurent was considered more of an industrial space. It wasn't necessarily a residential space, but they developed it well. It remains very central, and you have a lot of overflow from very high-end areas such as TMR, which is not far, coming into Saint Laurent, because homes in TMR are much older. And they have a little bit more problems as far as infrastructure, with the plumbing problems, with the floodings, and hydroelectricity outages. So when you're coming to Nouveau Saint Laurent, where power lines are a lot of them underground, and you don't have plumbing issues, infrastructure is very recent. People appreciate that. You have a $5 million house in TMR that's flooding. You're kind of saying that it's not the quality of life you want, so it overflows. So that's why I think that an area like Saint Laurent is great, because it also ran out of developing land. So now you're not competing with new developments.
So the values go up.
The values go up significantly.
Are there any hidden gems that you would consider to be in the greater Montreal area?
Well, it's been developed quite well already. Montreal is not that big of an island, and people are developing well. And I would say a little gem that you would find is the Sarriguet area in Ahunsik, which is a little section, which is across, not 2 minutes from Saint Dorothy and 2 minutes from Saint Laurent, which is a little gem, but nobody knows about it. There's a lot of mishmashes, but a lot more new construction is coming. People are tearing down older homes, building new ones. So that's a little spot where you could see a trend coming together.
So you just got back from the RE/MAX International Awards conference or show in Las Vegas, where you, as you mentioned, ranked among the top 100 worldwide. I said Canada, but it's actually worldwide. Now, seeing real estate from like an international standpoint, how do you think Montreal's luxury market compares to other major cities in the world?
Well, I'll tell you what's impressive about the awards, because I'm ranked in the individual category of realtors, the ones that work without a team themselves. And there was another 3 or 4 brokers from Quebec who ranked in the top 100.
Really?
On top of that, if I looked at the team's ranking of Quebec realtors, there was another half a dozen to a dozen top 100.
Wow.
And now we're talking about 110 countries, 150,000 brokers. And so if you look at that and you say that there's a dozen or so Quebecers ranking in the top 100, that's quite impressive.
That is.
For
That
the
is.
market. So it's so more important than my success was the success for Quebec, because it kind of shows that we're finally starting to hold our own in the luxury market, in the high-end market. And definitely if I look at houses, like I'll give you an example, a house in Westmount 5-6 years ago stayed on the market for over a year, and it sold for like $9 million. That same house a few months ago sold in multiple offers at $17 million for the house, which was in pretty much the same condition that it was in 6 years ago. But that's a significant high, almost double for a luxury market with 3 buyers who are willing to pay the same amount. That's significant, and that's a little bit of a testament to the Quebec luxury market. And I could see it getting better and better in that segment, because Quebec is, and most of the buyers for those houses, I would say majority of them are locals.
Really?
Locals, you have a lot of entrepreneurs, you have a lot of successful businessmen here, and we don't know how big, and we haven't even tapped into the luxury market. I think that we undervalue that aspect in Quebec. I think there's a higher end market, much stronger than people believe.
Why is that? I mean, historically, we lagged behind cities like Toronto, New York, Los Angeles. What key factors are helping Montreal
get up there?
Get up there?
I think there's a lot of industries we're starting to be leaders in, like the AI, the IT, the pharmaceutical. So you could see that there's a lot, the aerospace industry. So there's a lot more businesses that are parking themselves here. Families that also appreciate Quebec's security, safety. We have our negatives, don't get me wrong. I don't want to talk about bike paths and potholes, but we have our negatives, but we also have a lot of positives, a multicultural aspect of it. A mix of old architecture combined with modern architecture. There's a lot of beauty to this city, province, and I think a lot of people are attracted by it. And a lot of people stay here despite their success. That, today, if you're successful, you could still work from a lot of other places, but they choose to stay here. And that's a good thing for Quebec in general.
One concern that I've been hearing from a lot of affluent purchasers recently were the rising rates of municipal taxes that don't correlate to the actual values of the houses. Are you seeing this? Is there any movement being done by the real estate board, or is there any committees being held?
It's a great question, and it's a big concern. We're seeing it. It hasn't affected negatively yet, up to a certain degree. But eventually, if you continue rising those taxes, the key is not to make homeowners' lives miserable. The key is to encourage people to own homes. And, for a lot of people, maybe not the most successful people, for a lot of people who are retired today, that's their biggest assets. And that's what, that's the one thing that they can leave to their children. Talking about capital gains, adding it to the residential stuff and stuff, I don't like these kinds of trajectories that sometimes government are taking. We're taxed enough, I think. That's one of the negatives of our province. But we got to look at it a positive, and we got to talk, like you said, and figure out where municipalities and provincial governments and federal governments can understand that it's got to be win-win for people to keep coming here and appreciating living here. You don't want to keep losing qualified people because of taxes, or overburdening people with municipal school and all these taxes that you've got. So definitely it's something to keep an eye on.
Barry, if I were to look at Rosefellow's industrial side of our business, from your vantage point, how do you see industrial development impacting residential neighborhoods and markets?
Well, they go hand in hand, right? So you see areas that are well developed, and you guys are the experts on industrial sites and choosing and doing your market research, obviously. And you're looking at a lot of stuff. Like residential, is there potential for growth? Is there potential for improvement when you're parking? I saw that you got a great spot in Kirkland, which is fantastic. You know, the REM is coming close to you, and you know, there's a residential area that's developing well. So these are strategic spots that you're getting, which I find amazing. And you know, as the territories get flooded and inundated, and you're branching out and you're going further a bit, but that's also helping the area develop well.
Well, one of the things that we had seen, and I'm talking about like 10, 15 years ago, there was a very big apprehension from a residential buyer to want to be behind an industrial building, thinking that it would be loud, noisy. Your comment about our new development on the TransCanada in Kirkland, we actually took the residents into heart while developing these buildings, ensuring that there was a buffer, that the noise levels were actually reduced versus what it was on the highway from before.
Exactly.
And I see cities actually playing a large role in that. Are you seeing that translate now to buyers?
Yeah, I see in perception change. Actually now, you know, when you have industrial buildings behind your residentials, and as a salesperson, I give it as a positive pitch. And you don't have people looking into your home when you're in your backyard. You know, your privacy, and weekends, there's nobody. And so in a way, and it brings people there. You know, you got foot traffic. It improves also a little bit the local markets. Your services become more and more. So I think it can only help. And of course, when you have a rundown industrial building that no one's taking care of, it's not a good thing. You know, it's an eyesore. But if you've got people like you guys developing beautiful projects, and the opposite is happening. You know, you're improving that neighborhood. You're increasing the value of their homes. So they welcome that, you know. So it's how you're working is exactly impacting your industry.
It's how you you know, in our case, it's how you take them into account. Like we always said, you know, we'll never have trucks that back up towards a home. They'll go perpendicular. We'll put up visual sound walls to block the views. So you got to take into account.
But those are the little things that you guys do that makes you stand out, and it's part of the reason of your success is you think beyond a little bit. You know, that the difference between success and failure is very thin line. I have always found, and the ones who succeed are the ones who take that extra step. And just like you said, you think about little things that most people wouldn't care about. I'm building it most efficient way possible, but you're looking at angles of the trucks and this. That's amazing. You know, that's what you want to hear. You know, so
on to a very popular topic, tariffs. Yeah. How has this been affecting your side of the business, residential? Have you seen people say, pause?
I mean, you see it very short-lived. You know, I think people pay too much attention to the news, and in a way, you should be aware of the news, obviously, but you shouldn't let it guide your decisions. In real estate, I've found that when you're making decisions on panic, even you're a seller, you're worried about the tariffs, and you say, "Let me give it away." My job is to say, "Calm down. Let's not give away anything right now." You know, so that's where it's important to have the trust in your realtor who's not using that as an opportunity to give away a fire sale property. And as a buyer, also, I don't think it's a good idea to hesitate to buy. Because you're worried, because then you're missing the boat. You're always worried. Meanwhile, people are buying, and then by the time you're ready to buy and you realize that the tariff's taken care of, prices are up 5%. So you just lost in 6 months.
That's exactly what we've done.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. Everybody's putting pen to the table, and we're saying, well, when are you going to start? When things start getting better, you're already too late.
Exactly.
You've nailed it, Sam. We started Rosefellow during the pandemic. No one was
Scariest
developing.
Of times.
Scary.
And no one was building. No one was building on spec in this province, and we took a risk, a calculated risk, and
were you concerned? We were not concerned about that.
No.
We knew what the market needed.
Exactly. And then we had the interest rates. I remember sitting on a panel at the Auto Real Estate Forum 2 years ago, and I was with 4 of the developers on stage, and they asked everyone, "Well, what's your plans?" And they said, "Well, we're gonna." To your point, pen to table, and we're going to wait. We're going to wait to see what happens when interest rates go down. We're going to develop. Rosefellow, what are you going to do? And I stood there and said, we're developing 500,000 square feet. We're starting now, shovels in the ground. And they said, well, aren't you scared? you always fear. I mean, you always got to fear it a little bit, but it was a calculated risk. And what happened? We ended up doing the largest spec industrial deal in the Ottawa market in its history.
Unbelievable.
But the incredible thing now is, when are interest rates going down? Now.
Yeah.
So
now
you're going to start?
Yeah.
No, again, now let's postpone.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a reason to
always a
say,
reason
let's
to
wait.
stop.
Exactly.
So the key is to, you know what you're doing. And once and also you don't get there by chance. Also, you got to that mindset because you worked, you grinded, you paid your dues, you learned your craft, right? So that's going to help you, obviously.
If I were to throw a couple of quick questions at you, Barry,
sure.
What's the number one quality a successful real estate broker must have?
One word I would tell you: empathy. I think that's what makes you successful. I mean, listen, the trust you gain with your clients is got to be genuine, and if you don't have empathy, it won't be genuine, and people feel that. So I think that the number one trait that people should concentrate on is having empathy to deal, because like you mentioned, there's going to be different types of people, there's going to be different circumstances, there's going to be stressful times and anxiety. So if you have empathy, it's a number one trait that I think you can have as a realtor to succeed.
That makes me remember a story from my past life. I remember getting a call from a client, and I was working for a developer. And he said, I'm looking to build a building. I want 25,000 square feet. I said, okay. I took his number, his name down. We scheduled an appointment. I went to see him, and I sat down, and he gave me all the details of what he needed. It was a little manufacturing plant. And I looked at him, and I said, you don't need us to build you a building. You're going to spend too much money.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you in contact with a real estate broker, and you're going to find a building you can rent.
Yes.
Because you don't need it brand new. You don't need to get the ceiling heights. You can find something at a reasonable price. He goes, I don't understand. He goes, but you're not going to make any money that way. You're getting a cut from the broker. I said, no. But I want to be able to refer you what's best for you. Fast forward, he ended up doing a deal.
Yeah.
Fast forward 5 years, he called me back. He said, Mike, remember me? Yeah, I ended up leasing a building. I said, yeah. He goes, I actually need a building now. My business has grown. And he goes, I'm not calling anybody else. I'm not going to deal with anybody else because you were more considerate of what was best for me as opposed to what was best for you. So empathy, I like that.
Catches up to you. And the truth is, look, in this, it's a great example. And you don't work. Listen, I have a sale. To give you an example, a quick example. It's not far from where you live, so it's an example that you'll appreciate. But the clients came into that house 6 months ago. And 6 months ago, sellers want to sell, buyer want to buy, but the price is way off, like $500,000 off. 3 months go by, 2 months go by, 4 months go by. Sellers don't want to sell anymore, put it off the market. The buyers still want to buy. I saw them at another property, bring it back. Let's call the sellers up. Do you want to sell? Okay, you convinced us. Let's go. Let's sell. Okay, 6 months in, we got the offer that the seller wants. What happens? The seller says, I don't want to accept anymore. What happened? Well, a flood of emotions came through all of a sudden. All of a sudden, it's not just selling your home. It's you realizing that you're giving up all the memories you built with your daughter in this house for the past 20 years. It's not a business decision. The price is right. That's what you wanted. The dates are good, everything you want, but you can't let go. So now you have to have empathy. You got to have patience with them. You have to understand what they're going through. But at the same time, you got a buyer there who might freak out and doesn't understand what's going on. Why isn't my offer getting accepted? So you might lose that buyer. Yeah. So you have to make both parties understand, relax, calm down. And sure enough, after 3-4 days of giving them time, they both got into a position where they say, yes, let's make it happen. You know, so you have. That's why I said empathy is so important in this business and in any business. If you, it's the key, I think, to success.
I agree.
So another rapid fire question. Best piece of advice you've ever been given in the industry?
Listen, the best piece of advice I've gotten, I'm gonna throw you off a bit. Best piece of advice I've gotten comes from the Bible, okay? And it comes from the Bible. And even though it's maybe it's a golden rule for Christianity, I think it can be applied to anyone. You're an atheist or a different religion, it doesn't matter. What is that advice? Treat others the way you want the others to treat you. This, I think, is key in not just business success, but in life. Imagine if everybody treated people the way they want to be treated. Imagine, it's just the life would be different. So I think it's the best advice that I could tell somebody. And simplify life a little bit. It's a simple thing. Treat them the way you want to be treated. It's, and in business, it works great if you do that. In anything you do, it works great, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's the best advice I can give.
Absolutely.
Well said.
One question we love to ask everyone who joins us: what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Embrace failure. Not just ignore it, not just brush it off. Really embrace it, because I feel I've learned the most when I fail. And because when you're doing things and it's working out, you're not learning much. You're appreciating it. It's great. But when you fail at something and you're really honest about it, and you don't point fingers elsewhere, and you take the blame and you say, okay, you failed. How? Why? How? And the key is after that to fine-tune what you think you may have done differently to not fail the next time. So I would tell my younger self that you're not in a sprint race when it comes to life. It's a marathon. Pace yourself.
So if I were you, I would have said bye.
Yeah, that's
should have bought everything
buy
back
for
20 years ago.
Sure.
Buy everything.
Everything.
Barry, any final words of wisdom for buyers, sellers, or investors that are tuning in to our show?
Just listen. I think the main message I have is to don't take any decisions out of panic mode. Just no matter what you hear, no matter what you're seeing in the news, a lot of people, the first question they always ask me, because I'm in real estate, is what should I do now? Don't panic. It's there's going to be ups and downs, but the bottom line is everything goes up like that, and life has a way of settling itself. So I would say have a positive outlook despite some negatives that you hear. Tune out the extra negative stuff. Don't get anxious every time Trump says something. don't panic. It's good theater sometimes. It's fun. Take it with a grain of salt. Some of the stuff he's going to say is great, and some of the stuff he's going to say is crazy. But if you're going to get high and low every time he speaks, or someone like Trump, I'll just give you an example, Trump. Yeah, you're on an emotional roller coaster ride. It's not going to help you.
The one thing that I found as a positive during these talks of tariffs and watching the President of the United States speak on stage and on television is when all of our premiers got together and they all went to Washington together. It was nice to see for once.
Canadian
that you would
pride.
see Legault, you saw
Yeah.
Ford, you saw them all together going. There was a picture taken of all them together. They looked like they were actually one, a united front. Very rare in Canada, especially in Quebec.
Even the people.
The people. Yes.
Even we have language wars here sometimes and stuff. Everyone got on the same page, right? So the big message, I guess, is the takeaway is there's a positive in every negative. Just look for it, and that's, I think, the positive here. Canadian pride all of a sudden reunited everybody again. So it's a nice thing to see.
And often people will say, and we'll move on quickly, but often people will say, things have slowed down. There's less to do. The phones aren't ringing as much. Take these opportunities to figure how you can fine-tune your business, fine-tune yourself.
100%.
There's always an opportunity. If there is more time, we'll use that time.
If the phones aren't ringing, pick up the phone and call.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, there's always something to do, right?
Exactly.
So stay active. Stay proactive.
Exactly.
Tell us, if people have listened, if people want to know more about you, want to know more about your services, how can they reach you?
I think today, I haven't had a business card in a long time. So I think today the best thing to do is Google my name. You Google my name, it sends you to my website. You can send me an email, a message. I get it. I respond to my messages myself. I'm very easy to connect with. So I think that's the key way to.
I love that. So to all those that tuned in today, that have been listening, thank you, Sam. Thank you, Barry. Thank you all for tuning in to another Rosefellow podcast. We welcome you to send us any comments you may have, and looking forward to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.